Miss Jackson,
Uh-huh.
when Miss Jackson was telling us how to go in there and see our picture.
Right.
Get it. I didn't see mine.
Right now, I'm seeing you, Dorothea. So that means your video is on. You're on. Mhm. I'm
Okay.
No, it says it's being recorded, so whatever's in the.
Okay, thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome, Dorothea.
All right.
All right. So I'm going to start sharing my screen in a little while, and you will be able to see the gallery view. But once that once I'm finished with showing my screen, you'll be able to see everyone again.
Guyana, the land of many waters.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Okay. All right, so let me get my view, everything running, and then we start off. If people are slowly coming in. I'm giving them a few more minutes and then we'll get started. How's Fran today? Fran, how are you today? You're one of the new ones.
I'm fine.
You're fine? Good. Doris?
I wasn't on here Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I had a doctor's appointment.
Uh-huh.
Guyana, land of many waters. Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So you gonna start over again?
Yes. How's Larry? Haven't seen you in a while.
Provided that scripture.
You've been missing, Larry.
Lay your resources.
Good. All right. So let's go back to our original. Today we're going to be looking at Guyana, the country Guyana, and the Jonestown tragedy. I'm sure many of you heard that many years, about 45 years ago, this tragedy.
Hey, yes, ma'am.
And it was a shock to many of us, just very shocked. So we're going to look at some of why so many African Americans were the highest percentage of this thing. We're going to look at that today. Okay, because that's one of the things that really did interest me. Why so many? And then I learned from my research why so many. But first, we're going to look at the country Guyana, and then we'll shift into Jonestown and answer that question. So Guyana is the land of many waters, is known for that. As you can see here, it is located in South America, the northern part, the northern part of South America, and it shares borders with Venezuela as well as Brazil. It spreads about 83,000 square miles, square miles, and 250 square kilometers of the coastal plain, white sand belt, and the interior highlands. And it's the fourth smallest country in South America. Guyana, it comes from the Arawak word Guyana, which means the land of many waters. Guyana also has the distinction of being the only South American nation in which English is the official language. The only. Mm-hmm. All right. Now let's take a look at some of the people that live in Guyana. The present population of Guyana is racially and ethnically heterogeneous, with ethnic groups originating from India, Africa, Europe, and China, as well as what is called the indigenous or Aboriginal peoples. Despite their diverse ethnic backgrounds, these groups share two common languages, English and Creole. Mm-hmm. The largest ethnic group in the Indo-Guyanese, also known as East Indians, they're the descendants of what are known as the indentured servants from India, who make up 43.5% of the population, according to the 2002 census. That's a while back. They are also followed by the Afro-Guyanese, descendants of slaves from Africa, who makes up about 30.2%. So where are the others? Okay, Guyanese of mixed heritage make up 16.7%, while the indigenous people known as locally Amerindians, those are the original people, make up 9.1%. So that's the smallest group, even though they were the original people there. Now, this is what the flag looks like. Most of the Afro-Guyanese is composed of Indians with many Anglicans. The Indian population practices Hinduism, while the Muslim community is a minority. All right, they said little known, this is little's known about this country. It is also known, well, let me see if I can mute
Many waters because of the numerous rivers, creeks, and streams.
Okay, this little known country located on the northern east coast of South America is justifiably called the land of many waters because of the numerous rivers, creeks, and streams that flow throughout its length and across its breadth. All right, so this is an image I have here of these are the actual Guyanese people. They were there from before the British took control of it. The Arawak, pronounced as Arawak, are the indigenous people distributed throughout the Caribbean islands and South America, including Guyana. And they still live, it's pretty much similar to how they did way back. Okay, so their economy was based on hunting, fishing, collecting wild resources, and they organized themselves in small bands rather than settling in villages. They used the techniques of chipping, grinding to make tools of stone, bones, and shells. And there they are in their dress, looking very pretty, all the young ladies. And there's some young men there too. But they are then we have the Afro-Guyanese group. There's the 175-year anniversary of the abolition of slavery and emancipation. Enslaved Africans coincide with what? 250 anniversary of what is known as the Berbice Slave Rebellion, and the 190-year anniversary of the 1823 Slave Rebellion, and simultaneously the arrival of the Indian immigrants, and 160th anniversary arrival of the Chinese indentures. So the Chinese came there as indentures, laborers as well. So they have quite a mixed, diverse group there. These Indians of Guyana, they started arriving around May 5th, 1838, the very year of final slave emancipation. In the British West Indies, a small batch of 396 Indian immigrants, popularly known as Gladstone coolies, landed at Highbury, Berbice in British Guyana from Calcutta, India, aboard the what is known as the Whitby and Hepburus. That's the name of the boat. This was the beginning of the indentured system, which was abolished in 1917, by which time a total of some 240,000 indentured servants from India came to Guyana under a system whose essential features were very reminiscent of slavery. So they brought there as indentured servants. What that means, they weren't slaves, but they were paid some kind of, or given something in exchange for their labor. Whereas slavery, as you know, they were never given anything in exchange. But they came, they earned. And they have what is known as a Chinese Guyanese. They were there for 167 years. And they came also as indentured ship. They have and ever been making tremendous contribution to the diversity of Guyana. So there's quite a few Chinese there too. All right, then there's the Guyanese Portuguese. In the late 1834, a small group of Portuguese were recruited from the poverty-stricken island of Madeira off the west coast of Africa to work on a sugar plantation in Demerara, which is a city in Guyana. On May 3rd, 1835, 40 indentured peasants arrived on the ship known as Luisa Balia. By the end of the year, they had 553 others had arrived and were contracted to various sugar plantations. They're saying they not only brought their agricultural expertise, which would be sugar cane farming, but they brought their faith as well. They were profoundly religious, which brought new life into the Catholic Church in British Guyana. See, British Guyana was what the country was before it became independent in 1966. So that's why they're talking about it being British Guyana there. All right, so now for those of you who've been doing travel, attending Travel Tuesday for the last how many months, we've been looking at tourist spots, to places to go and have fun on the beach and eat and have lots and lots of fun. But Guyana is not the kind of place you're going to be going looking for those very beautiful beaches and just having fun. Guyana is more for a place for hiking and interacting and climbing mountains and just traveling down rivers and things like that. It's more like you're on some kind of adventure of going through places like the rainforest. That's what Guyana is known for, as far as that's the type of tourist that will go to Guyana. So it says, warning, this country is not a place to visit if all you want to do is unwind at a fancy resort pool, sipping a fruity cocktail. So if exploring rainforests is going on exciting hikes and interacting with locals is your thing, then immediately put the English-speaking country on your bucket list, if that's something you want to do. All right, so Guyana does have quite a few places to visit, but you have to be a real serious explorer. You have to be able to travel by land and water and small planes just to get around. It's not a place where you just hop on a bus and you arrive like you would do in Trinidad or in Jamaica or in Bermuda, places that we've explored so far. That you can do from bird watching in the dense rainforest to piranha fishing to taking a poodle jumper to the spectacular Kaichor Falls. The adventurous things to do in Guyana will certainly wow you. The lesser known South American country sits between Venezuela, Brazil, and Suriname, and actually sees its fair share of tourists each year. In the Kaichor National Park on what is known as Patora River, the Kaichor Falls are without a doubt Guyana's most highly prized national wonder. Some 30,000 gallons of water cascade down a sheer drop of more than 750 feet, almost 5 times the height of Niagara Falls, making Kaichor one of the world's largest and most ferocious waterfalls. The breathtaking waterway is surrounded by a protected parkland, which makes a great place to explore the outdoors. All right, so the capital, known as Georgetown, has what is known as a quaint cathedral to a distillery to a memorable farmer's market. Guyana's capital city of Georgetown has so much to offer. For a dose of civilization before heading out to the remote savanna or jungle forest, the capital of Guyana, Georgetown, offers a slice of lively urban life. Colonial buildings dominate the town's architecture, telling the story of the city's Dutch and British heritage. Meanwhile, its lively markets, splattering of museums, and handful of good restaurants make the city an entertaining weekend stay over or stop over. So if you're adventurous and you're actually planning to go into the rainforest, they're suggesting that to stop in Georgetown and get to know the locals there and visit and then head off into the jungle. All right, so where do you go when you head off into the rainforest, and where do you stay? How often do you get a chance to stay in a smack dab in the middle of a rainforest? Some of the best places include the Arena Lodge, situated at the meeting point of what is known as the Ropani and Riva rivers. Stay in a traditional Benab native hut or a rustic cabin with good facilities. But be warned, you may get some unwanted visitors. And what would that be? Probably bugs and mosquitoes or whatever showing up. But there's an image of these huts that you could stay in if you're that adventurous. Then there's a place called Sarama Lodge. It is located in the North Rapapuni Savannah, surrounded by forested Pakarumi Mountains. Is a sign scenic with opportunities to observe wildlife. If you're into wildlife, that is. Not too far away is the Rock View Lodge, which also has comfortable private rooms with fully equipped restrooms. So again, if you're adventurous, you can stay in one of these huts. In other words, there are none of the prestigious hotels like the Marriott or five-star hotels are available here. You'll be staying in huts. All right. You'll probably want to go on an overnight rainforest mountain hike. You could start the adventurous Arwami mountain hike from the base of the mountain, which most people arrive by boat, which are booked through their lodges. The first 15 minutes of the hike are an easy walk, where if you're lucky, you will pass by what is known as the Makushi people, who will be cooking some traditional cassava root for lunch. So as you can see, they're cooking outdoors, and there's an image up there of the people on their hiking trail. Notice that these are like walkways and bridges. Then there's known as the Pakarima Mountains. It is the traditional Amerindian settlement in the North Rapuni area of Guyana, about 30 kilometers south of the capital of Georgetown. It is set in the forest-fleeced Pakaruni Mountains. This is a place where both native culture and natural fauna live side by side. The land is home to the Makushi tribe, who run a community-based eco initiative. They provide visitors with accommodation in rustic huts and take them on guided tours of the village, savanna, and mountains. Then there's the Iowakaroma Forest. Again, covering what? 3,700 square kilometers of central Guyana. The Iowakaroma is recognized as one of the last pristine forests in the world. Camps throughout the forest allow for visitors to get to the heart of the action, wading through the foliage to spot jungle wildlife, or following the river to reach the Akarora Resort Center. Here, those with a head for heights can walk through the Iowakaroma walkway that snakes across the air through the forest canopy. So there's how you're going to be getting to it, through these canopy walkways. Okay, so we've kind of given you a tour of what it would be like to be a tourist if you choose to go to Guyana, if you're into wildlife, rainforests, and so forth. Now, what I really wanted to wrap up with is with this really horrible tragedy that took place in Guyana about 45 years ago. And that's what we're about to explore now. So when people hear the word Jonestown, they usually think of horror and death. And that's true. That's very true. Located in the South American country of Guyana, the People's Temple Agricultural Project was supposed to be the religious group's promised land. In 1977, almost 1,000 Americans had moved to Jonestown, as it was called, hoping to create a new life. The People's Temple Agricultural Project, better known by its formal name, Jonestown, was a remote settlement in Guyana, established by the People's Temple, a San Francisco-based cult under the leadership of Jim Jones. Jonestown became internationally known when, on November 18th, 1978, a total of around 909 people died at the settlement at a nearby airstrip in a Port Kayatuma at a temple-run building in Georgetown, Guyana's capital city. The name of the settlement became synonymous with the incidents of those locations. So there we have a picture of the cult leader. His name is Jim Jones. And let's find out more about him. So in 1978, the People's Temple had 5 branch operations, 3 in California, Redwood Valley, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and 2 in Guyana, Georgetown, the capital city, and Jonestown, located in the dense jungle near the border of Venezuela. With the mass migration of temple members to Guyana in 1977, the California operations became greatly truncated, though several hundred people still attended services in San Francisco and Los Angeles. People's Temple rose to its prominence in San Francisco during the turbulence of the post-civil rights, post-Black Power, post-Vietnam War era. A self-proclaimed Marxist who visualized Black liberation struggle, Jim Jones, actively courted the support and approval of the Bay Area liberal political establishment. He skillfully mined the language of social justice, racial equality, and anti-sexism in an era in which delusion with the possibility of freedom from institutional oppression ran high. So this thing was started right when we as a people here in America was really feeling the pinch of equality. So Jim Jones touted liberation of theology ethos, what he called apostolic socialism, which married the best parts of Christian social gospel with a vision of communalism, egalitarianism that more closely aligned with his inherent atheism. Initially, this rhetoric was actualized in an array of social welfare programs and housing and health care for church members, though it would ultimately be perverted through a systematic pattern of paranoia, abuse, persecution, fueled by Jones and his inner circle. So what they did was, again, people who are struggling financially, lack of food, were basically captured with this free meals, housing, and healthcare. He kind of threw that out there, and that's what happens when you're vulnerable and need the social system to be there for you. So he was able to really work on this method. And so in my research, I wanted to find out why so many Black women died. They're the highest percentage of gender and race that died in this terrible tragedy. Well, they're saying rendered but anonymous, they represent a complex extended families of children, elderly women, young women, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, sisters, and nieces. They came to Jonestown, Guyana, from communities all across the US, drawn by what is called a utopic promise of life in a communal settlement, envisioned by a charismatic white messiah as socialist refugee from American racial apartheid. About 75% of the People's Temple members were African American. 20% were white, 5% was Asian, Latino, and Native American. The majority of its Black members were women, while its core leadership was predominantly white. As per cultural cliche, Black women like trash, this is a woman we're going to find out about, were the backbone of the People's Temple, the primary victims of Jonestown and the population with the deepest investment in philosophy, ethos, and mission of the church. And you can see from the image here that the majority were Black females. This is the choir, People's Temple Choir. So Jones's rhetoric of racial equality and white people first reality of church leadership, that was his goal. Despite being elderly and infirm, Trash, this is the woman, Hyson Trash, and her sister followed Jones from Indiana to Ukiah, San Francisco, and Guyana before Trash became disgruntled with the divide between Jones' rhetoric of racial equality and the white people first reality of church leadership, through she nonetheless chose to remain. As early African American members of the church, when it was based in Indiana, Trash and her sister tied 20% of their income to the People's Temple. Thousands of dollars in property sales, Social Security, disability, and welfare benefits from the temple members were funneled into the church's empire. So these people were so vulnerable, they gave up so much because they wanted to be a part of a community, to feel loved and accepted based on their color. Unpacking why so many Black women died in the Jonestown requires taking a critical look back at the racial underbelly of the Jonestown age. It demands confronting hard truth about the generously gendered seduction of organized religion, particularly given in the global appeal that 24/7 prayer movements and charismatic Pentecostalism have for women of color. So, based on research, this is the Kaiser Foundation, says in times of turmoil, 87% of Black women say they turn to religion to get through life. And that is true. That's all we know to get through life. And so according to that survey, they said only 2% said that being religious was not important to them, and the white counterparts were 15% of white males, while 74% said that it was extremely important to follow religion in times of, desperation. Numerous surveys have touted the decline of American religiosity within the past decade, and yet in an era of Black economic depression, the need to be devout or churched up has not diminished for most African American women, despite the often patriarchal, heteronormative heterosexist orientation of the Black church. All right, so the widening gap between Blacks, whites, and Latinos, coupled with downward mobility of Black middle class, only amplifies the role of religion in Black life, because charismatic faith movements thrive in the presence of socio-economic and political turbulence. Black religiousy is flourishing. As a breakout of popularity of the new reality shows the preachers of Elliot Test. So you can see these are all images that I got from various research that I got on this thing. These are the members of this Jonestown. What do you see? You see people that look like us. But they're saying that this veneer of equality hid pernicious race and gender hierarchy in which the temple vaunted inner circle was comprised of white women who were fatally loyal to Jones and his perverse will. This tight-knit cadre of white women was Jones's brain trust, acting as his psychological hinge women and enforcers, handling the temple's fund, intimidating potential defectors and seducing VIPs out of political expediencies. So he knew this man had to be a genius to figure out what techniques to use to get white females to do his dirty work, and then yet get Black females to turn over all of their income and their funding. I mean, this is tragic, but anyway, let's find out more what happened. So what did he do? Rather than teaching what is true religion, which is love, all is equal, this is what he reinforced: white supremacist social order. To paraphrase it, San Diego State University professor Rebecca Bohr, whose sisters Carolyn Layton and Annie Moore were two of Jones's brain lover lieutenants. Now they're saying, and this is what I believe too, if any People's Temple constituency had the power to stop the Jonestown massacre, these two women did. Because based on my understanding and my research, Jim Jones had already, a week into before the actual suicide take place, he was so strung out on drugs, he was so far gone that if these two females had in them what is true love for people, they would not have given those. They're the ones that did the suicide thing. They gave the Kool-Aid. They're the ones that actually executed it. Of course, he told them to do it, but if he's strung out on drugs, he's a one-man show. So, so if the People's Temple, like I said, but eschewing the whole trappings of the proper white femininity, they wound up reinforcing a white supremacist social order that some African-American members likened to that of plantation, complete with Miss Anne wielding the whip. So Jones became the charismatic white Jesus father-like figure. In many regards, Jones became the white Jesus father-like figure that so many Black women were besotted with today. In The Onlyest One Alive, this is a book that was written, Trash, who wrote it, speaks of how Jones's straying from the Bible was the fatal flaw of People's Temple. If he'd only been more of a God-fearing Christian instead of a false prophet who set himself up as God, then surely the massacre wouldn't have happened. And that's true. Because when you look at an image like this, you see a vulnerable Black lady, you know, totally lost in his arms. So he hadn't set himself as a god to them. Black women had been the most mistreated and scandalized in the US society and culture as they wrestled with both individuality and collectively with this triple jeopardize of racism, sexism, and classism, said Stacey Floyd Thomas, an associate professor of ethnics and society at the Vanderbilt University Divinity School. If this is the case, I believe it is no wonder Black women, due to the experience of sexism, would seek out their fate as a way of finding relief, retrieve, resolution, and redemption. That's what they were looking for. But so let's look at all who died there. So by far the largest single group of temple members lived in Jonestown. If we add all the numbers of those who died, 912, and those who survived, 87, the community was what? Overwhelmingly African American and female. About 70% were Black, 25% were white, and the rest were mixed race or unknown ethnic origin. Equally striking, perhaps, is the slightly fewer than 2/3 were females. So there's a graph here showing, you can see in blue, in the darker blue, these were 691 were Blacks who died there. All right, so here's how the Black female fits in this role. This graph combines the element of the race and the gender and vividly reveals preponderance of African American women, nearly half, at around 46%. Black males made up almost at least 23%, with white females 14% and white males 11%. So it appears that some racial boundaries were fluid in family relationships, although not in Jonestown hierarchy itself. Blackness was vaporized, rhetorically speaking. Some whites and most biracial children and young adults wore their hair in afros if they could, yet there were few African Americans at the highest level of authority. These are images of the kids that were there. And there's one biracial lady. So here I have a table of where these people came from. Looking at the distribution of births by religion, we see that you're seeing here, as you can see from the table I have, most of them, Blacks, came from California, 226, and Texas, 109, and then you can see as the number drops. There were 4 actually from the state of Washington. That's the state, not the city. And as you can see, though, that California is where most of them came from, and the majority were Black females. And it says here, adding the numbers from California, Indiana, where the temple began, the southern states, it is clear that the majority, 81%, came from these 3 areas. Of the remaining 39 states, all but 10 had at least one native son or daughter who died in Jonestown and one individual born in Washington, D.C. Only one from D.C. All right, so the racial proportion of those who died approximate that of the people living in Jonestown. They're saying 71% were Black, 22% were white, and 6% were mixed or other backgrounds. Almost 1/2 of those who died were what? African American women. All right, so this is just some information of people who died before the actual suicide took place. They're saying that they experienced several deaths before the murder-suicide of 918 people. 8 people died of natural causes in Jonestown between August 1977 and November 1978. 7 of the deaths were seniors between the ages of 63 and 78. 8 of them were infants who lived 18 days. unless, and this is what I conclude, and I think why I wanted to present it, because I think we need to look at this. We need to address why is it that temple and the tribe, it's Black majority victimized yet again, left invisible, relegated to mere footnotes in the telling of the madness of its white leadership. The Black dimension of people temple must be told. It must be brought out of the footnotes of the People's Temple narrative and in the next and into the main text. It is the one dimension I believe that has not been fully explained from a Black perspective. It is the one dimension that can recover People's Temple in history as Betty Shabazz and Malcolm X supporters have redeemed him. So that brings us, I think, to the end of it. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and then we could talk about what really happened. What is your beliefs? What did you get from this? What didn't you? What maybe you know more than I presented here. I don't know. Let's talk about it. And we'll take it in order with hands up. You can always put your hands up. Anybody willing to talk about this horrible tragedy that happened? I see Katana. Go ahead, Katana, unmute and talk.
So hello, Teresa and
Hello.
everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm particularly familiar with this.
Okay.
I lived in California at the time, in the Bay Area, and all these people lived in one section in San Francisco. It would be like living in Kenilworth Gardens and Kenilworth. It was about that size. You know, that area that comes off of 50 and 295 and runs all the way down to the electric company where the big things are. It was about that size. And it encompassed, it was a Black community, totally Black community, mostly impoverished, most of the people in there, you know, single mothers, didn't have much money, didn't have, you know, got state benefits, food stamps, welfare. And it's a place where churches cluster. I don't know why they do that to feed off of people that are most vulnerable. But boy, when that happened, when those people got up and flew out of California, there was a flurry in the city of what just happened, because they left behind family members. They left behind sons that wouldn't go, husbands that wouldn't go. The men would not go. The women were going to take the little children and go, but the men would not go. And they created a big fuss in the area so that everybody became aware something is wrong, something is going on. Where did all these women leave to? Why did they leave? You know? And so many newspaper articles were written and they talked about it on the news. And of course, we as Black people talked about it among each other. What just happened? Where did this white guy come from that took all these Black women out of here? And why did they go? When they drank the Kool-Aid and all of them died, it was a greater sorrow over the land than when the people got killed in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago. And when the children got killed down in Texas, and you know how sad that felt when we found out the police didn't even go in and try to save those babies, that the babies had been on their own. And that's how everybody felt, because these were women and babies that died down there in Guyana. And it was like, how the heck did this happen right under our noses? You know, Satan had walked up into our community and carried our people away.
Yep.
And that's how it felt. And I tell you that lived on, they tore everything down. They demolished everything on the land. Like it would be like everything on Kenilworth gets torn down. The whole land was torn down. They put a fence up around it that is still there. Now, this happened in 1977. You would think that, like U Street, Georgia Avenue, 40 years after the dam, they rebuilt it. 40 years has come and gone, and they haven't rebuilt this land. It is scorched earth. Nobody wants to live on it. If builders won't build on it because people say, I'll never live on that land. I will never live on that. And San Francisco is smaller than DC. So you know the land is valuable because they don't have that much land to build on. But because the response is still, we'll never live on that land, they never built, they have not built anything on that land. And if I might add one other thing, something I've seen that's similar, but the people in DC don't talk about it. And that's Evangel Temple, which started over on Rhode Island Avenue. And you know those people in Edgewood were the members of Evangel Temple. White pastors, 3 white pastors, no blacks in leadership. And those people took out more second mortgages on their homes.
Amen.
Helped them build that that church that's out there on 214. And those white pastors made them all kinds of promises. If you do this, and they increased their tithes to 20%, just like Jim Jones did. They did a lot of the same things Jim Jones did. They increased their tithes to 20%. And then they told them, we're gonna move way out here on 214. Now they living right there where the Rhode Island Avenue subway station is. They living all in that area there, Edgewood. So they told them they would run buses from Evangel Temple back over there to pick them up if only they would give them the money to help to build that facility. And so that community of women again, women with children, gave from the little bit of money that they had. They gave to that church. They remortgaged their houses. They did whatever they could do to help build. Thank God they're still alive. That's the only thing that I can say good that came out of that, because they didn't run any buses back over the Edgewood to get them. No, they were affluent once they moved out there. They didn't need the poor people, or as they considered them, the poor people. I call them the righteous. And, you know, the ones that deserved more, left them behind. And many of them with bills still to pay on their houses, second mortgages they had taken out. And they took them to court. They took Evangel Temple to court, but they did not win. They did not. And many of them are still strapped with bills to pay for that wonderful, big, huge Evangel Temple that sits out there on 214 with the new center that they have that's run by Martin's Catering. They benefited nothing from this. This can happen over and any time. You know, anytime white people can get a foothold and they can sell you their Jesus or whoever they want to sell you, yeah, they will. And carry you down a rabbit hole. And at least in DC, I'm happy to say we didn't face death and destruction like they did in San Francisco. And in San Francisco, they will never, ever be the same. Thank you all for listening.
Okay, thank you, Katana. Thank you very much for sharing. Okay, I see another hand up. Where did that person go? She had her hand up a little while ago. Fran, did you have something to say?
All I had to say is that she telling the truth. She telling the truth about Evangel Temple. And I don't see why we blacks are taking advantage of, because they were doing fine up there on Rhode Island Avenue. They were. And these white, we got some blacks just like that ministers that all they gotta do is dress up and everything.
Mm.
Like, what's that pastor up there at P Street? He owns a church up there. I forgot his name. Came to my church one day and say he paid $75 for his socks and all this.
Mm.
I asked my minister's wife, did she get her Mercedes yet?
Mm.
Now that doesn't make sense for a minister to ask that, to
Mm.
glorify himself and everything and show off what he got. We got pastors out here that making $1 million off their congregation. We got one pastor, they got jets they can fly in.
Mm. Wow. Well, thank you very much, Fran. I go to the next person who wants to share. Georgia, did you want to say something? I see you're feeling better today, Georgia.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
looking. I heard about all that Jamestown a while ago, but I didn't know they were. Why did they kill all those ladies?
Well, I wanted to know from Miss Dixon, what part of San Francisco these people lived in. Miss Dixon, what part of San Francisco did most of these
So
people?
I can't tell you the exact part of the city. I never learned how to dissect the city. You know, I knew San Francisco from, Palo Alto and different cities out there, but to dissect it, I can tell you it wasn't downtown. It was right off of the freeway. As the freeway comes through, after you pass the stadium out there, and the freeway comes through, getting ready to go onto the Oakland Bay Bridge, it was right there on the right. It was a designated period.
Well, thank you for that background, because I really learned a lot.
It was isolated, segregated.
And you said they've not built on that area since then. I also wanted to say, that out at Evangel Temple, they have what they call the Camelot Room. And
That's right.
That's what's run by Martin's Crosswinds. And
That's
they
what it's
do
called,
a fantastic business. It's a beautiful, beautiful room for special events with chandeliers.
Yes.
And I have to say that my church even has had events out there. But maybe we need to look into the history of these particular sites before we jump into putting our money into them and see who's benefiting. Because a lot of Black churches, and I'm sure they're booked up to the T with events scheduled at the Camelot Room.
Well, COVID probably put an end to that for a while, but I'm sure they'll be back.
Oh yeah, they're still having, because I heard an announcement on the radio just Sunday about an upcoming event at the Camelot Room. Now that people are, things are opening up and the COVID has diminished to some extent, but it's still here. But that room brings in big bucks, I'm sure.
But the thing is where's the money going? That's the question.
Exactly.
They're going to help those in need, or are they going to make those richer than rich?
Most likely.
It's the latter.
Richer.
Well, if I might say this, in PG County, First Baptist Church of Glen Arden is known as the Department of Human Resources. They give more to the community than the county has to give to the community. Help people pay their rent, give out food. They do so much. They're known for that. But Evangel Temple holds just as many people, and they're not known for doing anything for the community. Nothing.
And I think when you become a member there, you're supposed to disclose your income tax returns and verify your income. And then it's based upon all of that as to what your tithing should be.
Right.
And I think they hold those people to that. And as Ms. Dixon was saying, I'm sure they, will prefer giving to Evangel Temple over paying their house mortgage or some things that could benefit their families or their communities. With the white leadership that they have. They've always had a white pastor.
You can't buy
I see Fran, you're waving your hand. Fran?
Yes, I am, because I'm gonna tell you about my experience. I
Okay.
got sick in 2019. And when about in August of that year, I received a letter from my church because I didn't fill my obligations, my monetary obligations. I was taken off the rolls of the church.
Oh
Oh my
my.
goodness.
That wasn't God-like.
Wow.
Hmm.
I would resign from that church without them
Oh
taking me off
my
if I thought
goodness.
they would
I
do
mean,
something
it's
like
not right.
No.
It's not right to just
Oh, it's not right.
take somebody off the rolls of the church just
Mhm.
because they haven't fulfilled their monetary obligations.
Not
And
ahead.
I didn't tell them I was sick, but yet and still they shouldn't have did it.
Right. Yes, that's
Mm.
understandable.
That's
Jennifer,
awful.
did you have
You got
something to say?
money hungry churches out here.
Yes.
There's a lot of them.
Jennifer?
He definitely was out.
Yes.
Mhm. You have something to say, Jennifer?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I'm rather ill and I'm coming on late. I'm so sorry about that. But I'm listening to the comments being made, and I am appalled that people are taken off the rolls or they're not considered members of the church because they didn't pay. I mean, I don't understand. The church is in order to operate, they must have some money, but it's not a demanding kind of situation. This is a voluntary thing. You can't tell me that I'm not a member of the church, or you shouldn't tell me I'm not a member of the church, or I'm not enrolled because I haven't filled out my monthly obligations. I mean, that's ridiculous. That you should leave that church. That's not a church.
Mm,
But you'll lose faith in the church too because of that.
mm,
Yes.
mm.
Did you say lose face?
Yes.
Isn't that a shame?
Mm.
You lose faith in a church.
Yeah, all your friends and everything, and you lose face because you're ashamed and because you've been put out of church. But honey, God wants better for you. You shouldn't think about staying in that church.
I'm gonna tell you
You shouldn't think
something.
about it.
I have my
Mm.
own prayers to God.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
You can do it individually
Yes,
to
ma'am.
Him,
Mm.
directly to Him. You don't have to go through that pastor.
No, I'm so sorry.
Exactly.
So sorry to
What
hear
church you
that,
go to, Katrina?
Yeah, you can put it on. But I'm gonna put
Katana. I go
Katana?
to Zion Church. My church is Zion. It's in PG County, Pastor Keith's Battle. But you know, I'm not recommending my church. I'm just saying to you,
I'm just
if they
saying,
did
I
that
just
to
want to know
you,
what church you know
uh,
so much
you,
about my area, Kenilworth and Paradise Manor.
I do.
Okay, can I get some others to respond?
it.
Any others want to respond? Those who haven't spoken as yet about the tragedy or the visit. Anybody went to Guyana? Anybody would like to go
He
to
was a white
Guyana?
con artist.
Any other individuals wanting to participate in the discussion? Hello? No one else? No? Well, it was certainly nice that,
Teresa, hi.
go ahead,
Good
Denise, go ahead.
to you. I was thinking if the pastor, you had a pastor and they say, oh, we're gonna have Kool-Aid today, everybody. Let's drink Kool-Aid. But what pastor gonna give you Kool-Aid? I would say, well, he could have put it in something in the water too, but he preferred Kool-Aid, so that should have been a flag right there.
Mhm.
I would have said, why we gotta drink Kool-Aid?
Why not drink
It
wine?
might not have been him. It might have been the women.
But
But
they knew that they were drinking to their death. That was not a surprise to them.
right,
They died deliberately. They committed suicide on purpose.
Yes, they did.
They
Yeah.
wanted to die.
Mhm.
well,
They
they
did it
thought
on
they were
purpose.
doing the right thing. That's what they thought
Yeah.
they were doing. They thought they were doing the right thing. And so they're being vulnerable, feeling trapped. Also, I found out that many who attempted to escape were punished.
Mhm.
Right.
So it wasn't just, well, I wanted to drink it, but I'm afraid. I don't know what to do. I'm in the middle of a jungle somewhere. Who's going to
Right.
shoot me? You know?
Right.
And they
Yeah.
surrendered. So there's a lot to, you can't say, well, they deliberately drank it. You can say, yes, they were given it to drink it, but they had fear there too. They must have had fear.
They
Yeah.
believed too. They believed.
Teresa,
Yes.
I came on late, and so I didn't hear what the conversation was about. I'm a person from the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
as you can hear from the accent,
Yeah.
and I live in. I'm a native Trinidadian, born in Trinidad and Tobago, which is next door to Guyana.
Guyana.
And I'm understanding that you're speaking about the Jim Jones situation.
Right.
Those people were in a cult, and they thought that they had to do what he asked them to do.
Mhm.
And you are right, they were in the jungle. They were separated from civilization to a
Mhm.
great extent, and so they revered him. They thought that he was their communication between God and them. So they followed to the T. Some those who disobeyed were punished. Some were killed. Some people were killed, and they also had members of the community of Guyana joining in with them. They also lost their lives. It was terrible. I remember it going on, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what is this?"
No, you want to.
Hello, what's
Yeah,
going on?
something happened with our bandwidth, but I think we're okay now.
Okay, well, I'm through. I'm so sorry I came on late.
Yeah.
I was trying to get on, and I keep getting a little trouble to get on, but
Mm.
eventually I stuck with it, and I said, before the time is up, let me just come on, because I am what you call it, only come on Tuesdays and Thursdays,
Mhm.
and I just look at the recorded training on
Mhm.
the other days, because I'm what you call it. Uh,
Oh, yes, you're the one. I do. You don't need to say any more, Jennifer. Did I send you
okay.
the links? Did I send you your links?
Yes,
You
I
received- I
got
need to
that.
send
Thank
you
you.
your additional. You need 3 more.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay.
Teresa, Tyler Perry has a program on called Ruthless. It's similar to this, what we talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like it comes on BET Plus. Well, it's on BET too, the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he have this cult. He have the women, the men, the children. I don't know if y'all familiar with it, but I be watching it. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they all believe in him, and they do what he say. If they try to run away, he'll have them killed if he catch them, because it's a big, organization where I guess they believe in him as their God. But it comes on BET Plus.
What
Um,
day? What day?
Thank you,
I
Gloria.
What day?
think like
Yeah.
on Wednesdays, but
Okay.
you can look it up too on
Okay.
YouTube.
I will.
BET, right.
Yeah, but he has a program.
Oh, thank you, sweetie.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, Teresa, can I ask you a question real quick? Um, if I'm doing Zoom, like I'm doing Zoom now, and I have another class, can I hook, turn Zoom on another I device, or I have to?
You can have Zoom on any device that has internet access.
Uh-huh. So like if I'm doing Zoom right here, suppose I
Uh-huh.
have a class,
Uh-huh.
something else I do, and I want to do it off my phone, I could still do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, okay, okay.
We covered that actually last week.
Yeah, I came, right.
Teresa,